Good evening. I am so excited. It is Wine Wednesday, and I'm here today with Michael Silacci of Opus One Winery, Napa Valley. Those of you, I'm sure everybody has heard of them. So give me a moment. I will invite Michael to join. And in the meantime, I just want to make sure you've seen all of the Instagram lives I've been doing. You can see all of my prior Instagram lives on my YouTube channel, Jet Setting Fashionista, or else on my IGTV channel, also Jet Setting Fashionista. Okay, let me invite Michael to join. Oh, hello.
How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Happy, I literally lost track of the day. It's Wednesday, right? There's so much going on in the world. It's hard to keep track.
It is Wednesday. Yep, all day.
Yeah. How are you doing up there? Are things okay in Napa? These fires are just so devastating.
Yeah, they're very strange. I mean, we had, we're seeing some black smoke, which indicates probably a roof is being burned of a house.
Okay.
Just over there.
Okay.
But there's been smoke. It's been heading south. The fires have been heading south. So it's a little frightening. Some friends who own a winery called Lobo Wines, the Wolves, Wuff, their home was burned in the 2017 fire. And Randy, Chris was in New York City, and she left some pillows that he didn't care for on the bed. So he got up the night of the fires in 2017, October 8th, to get some other pillows, and saw this wall of fire coming to the house. So he had just enough time to grab the cats from underneath the bed and get in one of the cars and drive down the hill. Now they just finished rebuilding, finished building their new home and the guest home. They're living in the guest home, ready to move into the big home, and the fire's headed their way. So,
I mean, it's just awful. As if these people, Napa, Sonoma, everybody, all of California, as if we haven't had enough. And I mean, 2020 has been a heck of a year. So, well, luckily, hopefully we can bring some joy to people today, because I have to say, I don't get to drink Opus One every day, especially not with the Winemaker. So this is a dream come true. Thank you for letting me share this with my followers. And I've heard of a lot of people that are, opening the vintages. I have a group in Indianapolis opening the vintage. I have a group in Chicago opening the vintages. So this is amazing. Thank you, Michael.
Now I have to tell you that one of my titles when I was at Stag's Leap Wine Cellars was Director of Integrated Fashion Management.
Oh.
And you made me think of that because your lipstick matches almost perfectly the color of the live button on my phone. So it's pretty cool. So I imagine you have a belt and shoes to match as well, and a purse. So
yes. Although, I mean, with this weather, I mean, it's so hot. But yeah, hopefully the lipstick is distracting from the heat wave we're all experiencing, Well, I didn't know about your fashion background, so we have so much to talk about. Thank you. So for those of you that don't know about Michael, I just had the pleasure of interviewing him, a little bit of a head start to the Instagram Live. So I literally have a lot of very in-depth questions on the blog, which I'm going to weave into tonight's content. But in case we don't cover them all, I think people should definitely refer to the blog and read up on your interview. And so why don't we start from the top? Let's begin. I mean, I don't want to keep people too long from the wine, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into winemaking. I know, but a lot of people don't. And maybe we can, then lead into, I'm not sure which one we're tasting first. So you'll be the boss and lead us through the tasting.
Yeah, well, we will start with the 7 in case people want to jump ahead.
Okay.
But no, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I decided I wasn't going to go to university until I found what I wanted to do. So I started traveling. I was heading to Japan for my first stop, but I made a stop in Hawaii for just one day, but ended up going to Maui, and I camped on a beach north of Kaanapali Resort for 3 months. And I washed dishes and bussed tables at the Sea Scoop restaurant at the Kaanapali Village or whatever it was.
That sounds very glamorous.
And then continued to Japan, and I went to Japan through Asia, Southeast Asia, and across to Europe. I arrived in Paris, and the only French I knew was Bon Voyage. And I looked up a woman who I'd met in Tokyo, and she said, if you want to learn to speak French, eat well, and earn money, you should pick grapes.
Yeah.
So I got a haircut, borrowed a car, drove out into Muscadet, where I was hooked up to pick grapes, and I fell in love with 2-hour lunches and wine.
I feel the same way.
The first 3 nights, 2 nights, I dreamed in gibberish because I knew what we were to do, but I didn't understand what people were saying.
Right.
So, but I had these really interesting dreams in gibberish.
Well.
And then,
yeah.
and then anyway.
I mean, gibberish, French, winemaking, it all sounds very romantic.
Exactly. So anyway, then I did a lot of bicycle trips around Europe and North Africa. And I worked for a company called Garland 01, and we built displays for perfume shops for Estee Lauder, Revlon, Lancaster.
I did read that. I used to work at Bloomingdale's, so I guess we both have a little retail history. Bloomingdale's and Louis Vuitton. And, well, a few. Barney's, Nordstrom, and Tiffany, if you want to hear them. Oh, and Gap Inc. God, how did I forget Gap Inc.? Who have I not worked for in retail? Anyway, keep going.
The one, speaking of Louis Vuitton, the one company that I think I would like us to reflect is Hermes.
Yes.
Because Hermes, like you have to learn to sew leather for 3 years before they even let you touch a bag.
Wow.
And their focus is exceptional. So anyway, that aside.
Yeah. I think that's a great pairing, an Hermes Birkin with an Opus 1 bottle of wine. I can tell you, a lot of the women watching, please comment if everybody agrees with me, because I think no woman is going to disagree with that.
Yeah, I love the Jane Birkin bags, but I would love to have a JFK briefcase.
Oh.
I don't know what I'd carry in it because I'm,
Your winemaking, well, I was reading about the blending, your blending secrets. It's always fun for me comparing the different vintages and seeing, the variance by 1 or 2%. So maybe you could keep those secret blending recipes in your briefcase.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Well, maybe we should pause, taste one of the wines, and then we'll weave in your story in between. I'm sure those people at home that are sitting there itching to have their first sip, I already had a sip because I had to get my tasting notes organized. They're probably like, come on, Emily, we want to hear what Michael has to say about the wines.
But, I bet they've already tasted it.
Well, maybe they skipped ahead like I did. We probably have a lot of overachievers on this Instagram Live.
Yeah, starting with you.
Well, hey, so I don't know if you know this, but I actually was at Opus 1 last harvest. I had the honor and privilege. Ian and Morgan invited me up, and you were probably, hard at work. I didn't get to see you, but that was spectacular. Maybe I'll have to come back this year and connect with you in the winemaking facility.
You will. I read your blog about your visit.
Yeah.
So,
well,
nice
it was hard
photos.
because there was so much that was confidential that I could only show maybe a quarter of the stuff. So,
Well, when you come with my team, you'll only be able to reveal 10%. So
perfect. Hey, got to keep it mysterious.
Yeah. So 7 was, I love the 7. When you first smell it, it smells like the stems of red roses. It's got that real nice freshness, herbal, green. I hate saying green because people get turned off by that term, but stems of red roses sounds fine.
And I think green is, herbaceous, and Cab Franc, I feel like there's so much, this is obviously not Cab Franc, but there's a little bit. When I think of Cab Franc, I think of green.
And even Cabernet Sauvignon, it's got a greenness, a bell pepper. So let's stick with the stems of red roses.
Okay.
And then some dark cherry and cassis, of course.
Yeah.
Chocolate still.
Dark chocolate. I'm cheating. I'm reading the tasting notes.
Oh, are you?
A girl's got to prepare. I don't want to get it wrong with the winemaker.
Yeah, and there's an earthiness to it. Speaking of Hermes, it's like an Hermes, a leather bag that was it was out in the rain.
Oh.
Okay.
Or I was going to say in someone's closet for grandmother's leather bag that you took out of the attic.
That's a good one too. That's even better because we don't want to get our bags wet.
So absolutely not. So I think I was going to say I'd love to come visit with a Hermes bag. I don't have one of those. Maybe we could get Hermes involved and we could do an Opus 1 Hermes jet setting fashionista thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But this finish was
so Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it
No,
is
please.
so smooth and like silky on the tongue. So who is tasting with us? I know we've got some people. I know we have a group in Carmel, Indiana, one of my college best friends, and one of like literally the largest purchasers in Indianapolis, their wine store, they're joining. I know we have a group in Chicago. My mom got a bunch of her University of Chicago friends together who are Opus One wine lovers. So I cannot wait to hear what all these people are thinking and if they have any questions for you about the 2007.
There was well, their name slipped away already, but there was a really cool name, something Spies, making the
Um,
comment beautiful layers. And then we have Danny from Argentina.
yes,
And I
people are
know more.
asking where they can buy in Brazil. I'm sure that it's available in wine stores, right?
Yes. What I can do is that we have there is somebody there who is distributing the wine, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But I can get that name to you if you'd like, and then
Okay.
they can find
So,
out.
whoever was asking for Brazil, if you message me or if you message Opus One, they can answer that question because we would love to, get you some Opus One in Brazil to enjoy.
And Morgan is on as well.
Yes, and Morgan's email address is on my Instagram story today. So you guys, if you just take a peek at my Instagram story, Morgan's email address is there, and she can answer that question. Oh, great question. So, what made the 2007 so rich and beautiful?
Well, this was the first year that I started in '07, and we I'm sorry, in '01, and we began to really prune back the vines to reshape them, give them a real good haircut, and get them to restart, rejuvenate them. And by the
Hmm.
time we got to '07, we had done some irrigation where we would apply a lot of water and then wait and wait and wait and then apply a lot of water. So we really wanted to get the roots down deep.
Interesting.
We wanted the roots to get
Like
down
is
deep.
that like a flooding technique?
No. It's drip irrigation. But
Oh, but I've never heard of it called so much water at once.
well, what we did was we dug backhoe pits and we looked at the different horizon, checked out the water holding capacity of each layer or horizon, looked at the root distribution, and we wanted the water to be like a Pied Piper that would lead the roots down deeper.
Yeah.
Because if you have, you have layers like a layer cake, horizons of soil, and you would, we wanted the roots to be deeper so they would be giving us a better expression
Yeah.
of place. So anyway, so by the time we get to 2007, I thought, let's dry farm. I think the vines are ready for dry farming.
Really starve the vines and make them work hard for it.
Unfortunately, that wasn't a good year to start because it was a dry year. I think we got 20 inches. It was a very warm year. Cabernet Sauvignon produced fewer berries per cluster. And so we had a few issues that year. And in this year, we had more Petit Verdot than ever. It was 6%. The reason being that in the past, we had a difficult time getting much Petit Verdot into the blend. We could probably put half in of what we had available. And so we had to figure out a way to get more in because Petit Verdot produces an abundance of fruit. And it produces, instead of maybe 2 clusters per shoot, 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
And so we wanted to take advantage of that and get more of it in. And I was born at 2:53 in the morning, and I often wake up between 2:30 and 3 going through my issues. And that year I was, I kept waking up, what are we going to do with Petit Verdot?
Yeah.
So finally what we did was I said, let's co-ferment it. Let's put in the same tank Petit Verdot grapes and Cabernet Sauvignon grapes. And if they get together earlier, they will have a different starting point chemistry, etc. So they will be more harmonious, and it worked.
Interesting. And so that's cool.
The best analogy I can give you is that when we try to blend Petit Verdot and Cabernet Sauvignon as wine, it's like it gets rustic, and it's like a dog meeting a cat in the street. They're going to fight. But when we blend them as grapes, it's like kittens meeting puppies. They grow up loving each other.
And
so
they've got, how many years do you typically age your wines before you guys release them?
3 years. The wines are released 3 years, October 1st, 3 years after.
So for 3 years, they're co-fermenting in a tank versus on their own?
No. The co-fermentation is only the 20 days that the grapes are in a tank.
But then, and then they're in the bottle for 3 years.
Then
but you think that 20 days co-fermentation gives it a head start versus separating them at that point?
Exactly. And then we make our blends in the January after harvest. So in January of 2008, we made the blend. And then it stays together, and the blend stays in barrel for 17 to 19 months. And then it goes to bottle, and it stays in bottle for 14 months before it is released.
Okay. So speaking of bottling and winemaking, we had a question, what it would be like if you guys were to make a white wine.
I think it would be amazing.
Which would you want to make if it was up to you?
I'm not sure. Maybe some... probably try to find some white varietal that maybe from the south of France or Portugal or somewhere. But the most logical one would be Sauvignon Blanc, some type of Bordeaux
varietal. Yeah.
And so funny you should, I've been asked that question before, but since the first year I got here, I wanted to make a white wine, and I wanted to call the label a Beatles White Album label. So instead of the label being like this, it would be all white. And everything would be embossed, so you'd have to hold it at an angle to be able to read it. And it would be served only at Opus One at dinners, because when we have a dinner at the winery, we have usually some champagne, and then we have either El d'Argent from Mouton, or we have one of the Mondavi whites. And so I thought, why don't we have something that we make? But so far it's been nixed because, and I understand it, we make just one wine, so it's and it's a red wine, so.
Well, so speaking of champagne, little fun fact for the viewers. In my interview, one of my questions is, what is your favorite after work drink? And yours is champagne. That's probably one of my 3 favorites. I can't just answer that question with one. So why is champagne one of your most fun drinks or most favorite after work drinks?
Well, I think it can be a before work drink. It could be an anytime drink. It's, people say that it takes a lot of beer to make good wine. I say it takes a lot of champagne to make great wine. So we drink a lot of champagne here. Yeah. And it's refreshing. It's festive. When you get older, well, actually, even when you're younger, you should think of every day as think of living moments. Yeah. And I think that there's no better beverage than champagne than to make you think of moments, because the bubbles and just watching it in the glass. And so I think champagne's a great way to go.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know if you saw any of my champagne coverage on the blog, but I've been twice, and it is just such an extraordinary region. I was planning to go again this year. It's becoming an annual trip. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, I love going to Champagne. The people there are just so warm and welcoming. Now, if you were asking, at first I read it as you may wanted to know if I like a cocktail or something. Whatever
whatever you reach towards.
So I would, champagne. If it's a cocktail, it'd be Negroni.
Oh, okay. So speaking of Robert Mondavi, who you mentioned, can you share a little bit more about the brand and sort of the history and how Opus One came to be?
Yes. So Baron Philippe wanted to create a joint venture with a California vintner. He came to California in 1970 and I mean, I say this, but I'm sure he just knew he had to go directly to Maui. But the vintners were having meetings in Maui. So he went to Maui and he met several vintners. When he met Mr. Mondavi, he thought, this is the perfect person. Mm-hmm. But like most things in my world, it takes about 7 or 8 years for an idea or a plant to bear fruit. So it wasn't until 1978 that they got together again at Baron Philippe's invitation at Mouton at Pauillac to talk about the joint venture. It took that long because Baron Philippe, it took him 50 years to have Mouton elevated from a super second to a first growth. Okay. And that was accomplished in 1973.
50 years, you said?
50. 50,
wow.
And Mr. Mondavi had built his winery, and the first vintage was 1966. So they were both a little distracted. Mm-hmm. And so in 1978, Baron Philippe invited Mr. Mondavi to come to Pauillac, and they spent time in the cellar, in the vineyard, having lunch, etc. but there was a little bit of a problem. The first conflict or interface between the two cultures. Mr. Madavi is thinking, as an American entrepreneur, we should be talking about business first, then we can get to know each other.
Right.
Baron Philippe is thinking it's great that we are getting to know our potential partners, because we bought Mouton in 1853. We will be in this business forever, so it's good to get to know them first before we make an agreement. Well, after dinner that night, Baron Philippe asked Mr. Madavi if he was still interested in the joint venture, and he said, yes, of course I am. So he said, we'll meet tomorrow in my office. Well, Baron Philippe's office was his bedroom.
Oh.
And we have a photograph of Baron Philippe in bed, silk pajamas. He's propped up by pillows. His breakfast tray is gone. He has a tray across his lap with papers on it. Marcy Madavi is to his left taking notes, and there's a hunting dog curled up at his feet on the bed. And in just 1 hour, these two gentlemen outlined the basic principles of Opus 1.
Wow.
It should be a classic red wine made from Bordeaux varieties.
Mm-hmm.
It should be something that people want to share with their family and friends. And third, it's a place that we leave in better condition than we found it. So sustainability.
Well, I feel like who doesn't believe in that? That's a great motto. My father always tells me, leave something better than you found it. So, we're at the movie theater picking up our popcorn when everyone else is leaving it for the guy to pick up. So speaking of the place, and I'm just looking at my notes. I have a cheat sheet of questions I want to ask you. Mm-hmm. So I was reading in your interview that the grapes are sourced 70% from To Kalon Vineyard and 30% from To Kalon Fan. Can you explain what the difference is in the vineyard and the fan?
Yes, Morgan may be very conscious of not giving you too long of an answer.
Okay.
In anything. Like the first question that you asked, I had to really narrow it down. She said, this is run on and there's too much going on here. Can you shorten this? She's great. She's such a great
that's why
coach.
We love these communications people. They tighten our writing. I tend to be a bit wordy as well, but anything you have to say, I would have loved to read.
So anyway, we have 4 estate vineyards, 2 of which are each 50 acres. So 170 acres total.
Okay.
2 of them are in the To Kalon Vineyard.
Okay, across the street from you guys.
Across the highway. One is called To Kalon North, the other is To Kalon South. Very straightforward. Yeah. The 2 vineyards that are adjacent to the winery are called the River Parcel and Balestra.
And one of them you're replanting. I rode by last week and I saw that.
Yes, we pulled out, 14 acres.
I was like, I'm going to have to ask Michael about this. I was so excited.
So that's actually, so anyway, now you distract me.
Sorry.
So anyway, what I mean by the Balestra and the river parcel being on the To Kalon Fan is that the fan goes across, the fan collapses and goes all the way across to the Napa River. So it's all on the same soil. But it's not part of the To Kalon Vineyard, so I just call it the To Kalon Fan. So, and then so
it's not owned by it's next door to the To Kalon Vineyard, so it's an extension, but it's not officially To Kalon.
It's across the highways, but it's not within the boundaries of the To Kalon Vineyard.
Okay.
But it's the same. It's on the same fan, so the same source material, same rocks, same.
That
soil.
Makes sense. So speaking of To Kalon, I remember I was discussing, I think this was with a winemaker, that there's been conversation that To Kalon has such a unique terroir that it should be its own AVA. What are your thoughts on that?
I wonder if we shouldn't. I mean, that would be cool. I think that maybe we should continue to move away from appellations and more to vineyard designation, more like the Burgundian model. Mm-hmm. But I think that'd be cool to have for it to have its own appellation. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I
know. Who knows, right? But
yeah.
I mean, being able to put To Kalon on a bottle, in a way, it almost is like its own appellation with its vineyard recognition and credibility.
Yeah, we wouldn't use the name To Kalon, first of all, because there are only 2 wineries that can use. Well, Andy Beckstoffer doesn't have a winery, but his clients can use Beckstoffer To Kalon, mm-hmm. and then Robert Madavi Winery uses To Kalon.
Okay.
There are other wineries that perhaps should be able to use it, like Graham McDonald's. He and his brother have a label called McDonald, and Diedert. You know, they're in the original Tokelon Vineyard. Maybe they, I mean, I probably shouldn't even say that. I'll be fired tomorrow. But
don't worry,
anyway,
it's not like this is not
but
being recorded. It's not going to go on
but
my YouTube channel. Nobody's going to see this. This is just a little conversation, you and me and a couple more people.
a couple more people, yeah. Your mom, for example, and she.
I
would
know,
never
my
tell them.
mom. Yeah, no, they won't. I mean, by the time Chicago reads about it, it'll be, you know, they're 2 hours ahead. They'll forget. It'll be bedtime. Well, that's interesting. So,
But it really is a very special vineyard. I've been able to work at some really incredible vineyards. BV1, the original George Latour vineyard, Stag's Leap Vineyard, Fay Vineyard, Draper Vineyard, which has a different
Fay.
name now.
Oh, Fay.
Yeah,
Fay
Fay
makes some beautiful wines. I've had those.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask you, I think in one of your prior winemaking roles, one of my questions I love to ask people is if they can talk about a mentor of theirs. And one of your mentors was someone I didn't even know made wine, a Russian fellow, right?
Oh, Andrei Chelichev is like the most, let's see, if Robert Mondavi is what Robert Mondavi is to public relations and marketing,
Yeah.
Andrei Chelichev was to viticulture and winemaking. He was a student at he was born in Russia, studied agriculture in Czech Republic, and then was at the Pasteur Institute when Georges Latour went to France and asked people, I want somebody to come to be the winemaker of Beaulieu and to turn it around. Who should I hire? Which Frenchman should I hire? And they said, no, well, Andrei Chelichev and he came to Beaulieu. Yeah. And he was responsible for Georges Latour Private Reserve.
It's amazing.
And he made it from 1936 until 1973. And he had come back to the winery when I was there as a consultant. But he was what kind of mentor was he? First couple times he came with me to the vineyard because I focused mostly on viticulture there. He'd tell me, this is great. He was just throwing all kinds of praise, my way. This is great. That's great. That's great. And at the end of the third visit, I stopped we were in Carneros at BB5, which was his favorite vineyard to go to. I turned off the pickup and I said, Andre, I don't think they're paying you all this money to tell me everything I'm doing well. I think they want you to critique me and force me to improve, do things differently.
Something different.
And he said, He said, are you sure? Do you understand what that means? And I said, yes, of course I do. And he said, and you won't be angry with me when I am very direct and frank with you? And I said, not at all. And he said, at the end of every session, can we still be friends? And I said, of course. And he put his hand out and we shook hands. He said, next time, because it was the end of our session, next time I will change my direction with you.
Oh, wow.
And with him every week after that, it was like he would lead you down a path. And then, did you see Little Big Man, the movie?
Oh, no, it doesn't ring a bell.
Anyway, so Little Big Man, General Custer's in there, and he goes down, at Little Bighorn, and then he's ambushed or massacred, his whole group. So I would be led down this hill into a valley, and then he would bury me. I mean, it was like him getting punched in the nose emotionally every week. And you have that stinging, that smell and that sting. And then afterwards you realize you deserve to get punched in the nose and you think about something differently. And so that's what it was like with him. Yeah. He was really a great, and he'd have people, he'd say, why don't you try this? And it wouldn't work. And he did this with Rob Davis at Jordan. I forgot what it was he asked him to do and suggested he do with Chardonnay. So he did it. And he said, what were the results like? And Rob described them. And he said, okay, yeah, I thought that's what it would be. And he said, why? He said, well, I did that back in 1945. And he said, then why did you tell me to do it? He said, well, I thought maybe it would be different with you.
Yeah.
But he was just amazing. He saw himself as a viticulturist first, then a winemaker. And he never used the term winemaker. He used the term enologist.
So speaking of winemakers, I'm going to interrupt you. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, we just got a really lovely compliment about you, and I just wanted to share it while you're talking about incredible winemakers. So I'm sure you're not telling the story I'm reading, but somebody said that the first wine tasting they went to at Opus One was in New York City, and you were the first person to come and talk to them, and it just shows how down to earth you are. And thank you for
that's
that.
sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I have to say, Michael, we haven't met before today. And yeah, I mean, God, we could just do this for hours. This is amazing. I'm definitely coming to Harvest, and I'm going to bring some champagne. So when we wrap up, we can have like bubbles at 4 or 5 or 3, whatever. Although you guys probably work a long Harvest day, so maybe like 7 or 8.
We start at 3 in the morning. I usually come in around 5 or 5:30.
What time would you want me there?
4:45, so you can get started in the vineyard with us.
Okay. Sold. I thought you were going to say 3. I should definitely get started before the boss.
No, 3 is, I mean, you could come at 3 if you wanted, but what we could do, okay, one of the funnest things to do is go to the French Laundry and then leave there, go to Ponch's until 2, and then come to work at 3.
Oh my God, you just described my last year birthday. I had a big birthday last year, and we went to the French Laundry, which was spectacular, out of this world, and I had never been to Poncho's, and I was like, I'm going to Poncho's. So we all were dressed, you know, to the nines, and we went to Poncho's, and we basically shut it down. I was playing pool and, you know, this really cute dress you'd wear to the French Laundry. But that sounds great. And then just roll into Opus One Harvest?
Yeah. We'd have to change you change out of your heels, put some boots on, and I'll put some different shoes on. Oh my gosh,
I love your style. Well, French Laundry reopened. They're doing outdoor seating. I was actually just up in Yountville last week, and I drove by and saw it. So we could definitely do this for Harvest.
20 tables.
Well, can you give us a reservation? I don't know if I have that much pull.
Of course we could. Okay. But 20 tables that, you know, they have the business outside that they would be doing inside.
What?
So they're up and running full steam.
It looks amazing.
So anyway, we have this over-the-road tractor. It's called an over-the-road tractor. The brand is the brand is Bobart. It's from Bone.
You're not allowed to give away any proprietary information about Harvest, remember?
Oh, well, yeah. No, I like this because I think that every Cabernet winemaker and viticulturist should grow grapes and make wine with the soul of a Burgundian.
Yeah.
So the tractor comes from Burgundy. And anyway, so we use the machine to light up the way for the vineyard workers to pick. But anyway, so I won't say anything more than that.
Oh, well,
I will say teasing. One more.
I was just teasing because when I wrote about it, remember, I couldn't really say much. I'm like, here's a bucket of grapes. Here's the finished product.
So I will say that we have on the tractor for Harvest, because we have a platform so you can stand on it and watch Harvest taking place. And we have an espresso machine on the tractor.
Oh.
So,
well, yeah, we're definitely going to need that if we come from the French Laundry.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I mean, careful what you wish for, because I am totally in. This sounds amazing.
So going back to the 7?
Yes.
I love the length of the finish on this wine. It's so long. And I really, you know, this is what, 13 years old, 13 years old, and it still has a lot of intense fruit on the palate. The acidity is still there.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm actually having dinner after this with a couple friends because I was like, you guys, I'm going to have 2 bottles of Opus One. We have to drink it. So actually one of my friends' husbands, I was like, I'll bring the wine. You cook a lot of really good meat. So we are going to be having a lovely dinner tonight. But I'm actually curious. Do you think we should try the 13? Because it would be fun to do a little side by side.
I was going to go in. Yeah, I was going to say we should. I've been drinking the 13 too. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
By the book, I stuck with the 7. Well, let's talk about the 13 and what we're smelling, and we can sort of, you know, let everybody at home hear what the winemaker thinks about the 13, and then I will jump in and have a sip with you.
Well, you know, this has a little bit different aromas. It's more like blueberry. Both of them have a little bit of raspberry.
Definitely more stewed fruits in the 7. More like, you know, raisiny and...
Oh, don't say that, raisiny.
Sorry, I'm doing W set, and that is, raisin is a word I'm allowed to use.
No, I know, but raisin to me implies that it's picked way too late.
No, I don't mean that at all. I just mean it's a lot older, and, you know,
Hey, we're having our first fight.
Oh my, is the French Laundry off the table?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Okay, we made up.
You'll be sitting at the children's table, but it's still on.
That's fine. I would love to sit at the children's table at the French Laundry. That sounds great to me.
But whereas, we had, we still had a very warm, dry winter in 13. We gave the vines a little bit of water before they broke bud. Why do we do that? We do not fertilize, but we do. We do in this sense that when we put some water on the soil before bud break, it releases nitrogen, which is taken up by the plant. So it's a white lie fertilization.
Oh,
and
water.
It just gives them a little bit of boost, a little irrigation. But the season was really just a beautiful season. Ideal conditions right through spring and summer. We had a little bit of a warm spell right at the beginning of harvest, but we started on the 5th of September and we were finished on the 8th of October.
Wow.
So it was very short.
Just under
our harvest typically are between 4 and 6 weeks long.
Okay.
But we've been lately more on the 4-week side.
Yeah, because of global. So speaking of harvest, when do you expect this harvest to start?
Well, we have our blessing of the grapes on the 1st of September.
What is on the 1st?
We will do a blessing of the grapes.
What is the blessing of the grapes?
We have Father Matthew is coming this year from the Carmelite Monastery, and he will do a blessing of the grapes. So,
well,
all the employees.
Is that open to the public? I want to come to this blessing.
It's only for the staff, the vineyard guys,
okay.
And but we have we're marking out. We're going to have concentric elliptical lines, and 6 feet distance, so that nobody you got to take your temperature before you come to work. Mm-hmm. You have to wear a mask. You have to stay 6 feet apart. All those rules we're enforcing. Yeah. And so so we have mimosas and croissants
with champagne. I hope, right?
Well, we do. So anyone who is drinking pure champagne and not a mimosa will have a glass of Pol Roger or maybe Krug. I'm not sure yet. Ooh. And then those with mimosas are going to have some sparkling wine with it.
You pick the champagne that gets served?
Mm-hmm. I'm responsible with my assistant, Angela, who is like, when I come to work and Angela is off, it's like I come to work like this. My glasses, no glasses. Yeah. She is like, keeps my vision crystal clear, directs me. I think that any executive should report to their administrative assistant, because they're the ones that really keep things going.
I mean, that's what everybody says. Like you got to find the gatekeeper to people, and like they're the best way to forge a relationship, with their colleagues or bosses. So speaking of the two, if you have to ask you didn't ask my opinion, but I'm going to give it. I would say I would maybe lean towards Krug. I was just there last November, and I mean, I don't know Pol Roger as well. I haven't had him as much, but I feel like you can never go wrong with Krug, right?
Yeah, I agree. I'd like, I met Olivia Krug here just for a brief moment. Yeah. I don't know, it must have been 10 or 12 years ago. And then we do trips to Champagne, privately. And he was late, and we came in, we were finishing our visit and tasting, and he wanted to have a glass of wine with us, and he was kind of frazzled because he was in a hurry to come back. And he said, so I imagine you've already had lunch, because it was, 1 o'clock or 1:30, or you have lunch plans. And I said, no, we don't. And he didn't listen. He didn't hear me. And so then he said, he said, well, a few minutes later, where are you going to lunch? And I said, I don't know. We don't have any plans. And so he took us to lunch. And that was so cool. Having lunch with him, and all the other champagne makers are there, and he's interacting with them. They could care less about me, because we make red wine. But it was really, really fun.
Where'd you go to? So this was in France. You went to lunch with him?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm saying it like that. The first time I went, I said it wrong, and everybody corrected me. So now I do that.
Yeah, I know. Like France.
Well, speaking of Krug, one of the reasons I'm such a big fan is their CEO, Maggie Enriquez, is
Yes.
phenomenal. And I met her in San
Yes.
Francisco twice in the same day. I went to two different events, and she's just a baller, and she's so
Yeah.
cool. And she like rebranded the whole brand. And I think in '08 or '09, it was like the lowest performer in the portfolio. And now,
Yeah.
I mean, when I was there, they play the music, the pairings with each thing. It's just brilliant. It's wonderful. And obviously, the family history. So even though LVMH owns it, there's still those family
Yeah.
roots, sort of like you guys, your family roots, even though
Yeah.
Constellation owns you guys.
No, Constellation only owns 50%.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Co-owns.
Co-owns, yeah.
Co-owns, yes.
But I'll tell you, I love Krug and Pierre Peters. I love Pierre Peters, Bollinger, all of them. The reason that we sometimes go to Paul Roger is that they're with the Rothschild family. They're one of the first families of wine, the Primi Familia di
Paul
Vino.
Roger is?
Paul Roger is Beaucastel, the Perrin family.
Yes.
Torres.
Beaucastel, I know because I know Tablas Creek and that whole story, and I love
Yeah.
I love that merging of the two cultures, and I feel like you guys are like the Napa. You guys are the Napa Valley as they are to Paso Robles.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So Paul Roger, isn't that the champagne that the Queen of England loves?
I'm
think
not
so.
sure. I'd imagine it wouldn't surprise me. I know.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I mean, we are talking a lot about champagne. I want to make sure we talk enough about your beautiful wine. So let's get back to this wonderful 13. So it's so different. Yeah, I mean, did you pick these because obviously there's a 6-year spread, but I feel like their flavor profiles are just, different profiles.
I always like to pick two vintages that are very different because it shows what we mean by expression of time and place. Every vintage is going to be have a different weather, and the season is going to dictate the flavor and aroma. So you have a cool vintage like 10 or 11, the fruit is not going to be as ripe.
Right.
And then you have something like 7, which is more going to be on the riper side, and 13 more of a moderate season is going to be more fresh fruit.
Okay.
But yeah, and I like the difference in the mouthfeel. 7, it does seem very silky and creamy, but we did not egg white fine the wine. So it's interesting how our guest, the guest that not to fine with egg whites was a good one because this didn't need it.
Yeah.
And then 13 was, but I love the silky satin character of the 13.
And it would be funny. Well, not funny. It would be interesting. I mean, the 13 is just totally beautiful right now. I have such a hard time, and actually, this is going to lead to my next question. One of our viewers asked, like the 13. If I had a case of this, I'd be like, it's perfect now. I just want to drink it. Maybe not a case, but I'd drink a few bottles at a time. But at the same time, one of the winemakers I did this with a week or two ago, he said, it's really interesting, buy a case and drink it once a year and then watch the development. And I was like, that is the most brilliant thing I've ever heard of. It might be a little bit expensive to do that for Opus 1, but I think it sounds like a great idea.
I always say that you should buy 2 cases, 24 bottles. Why? Because, to me, I think that the wine is really approachable when it's released because the way we pick the grapes and paying attention to keeping everything balanced every step of the way. But I think between 12 and 17 years, that's a really great window to taste the wines. So you want to be able to see that that from the release up until you're getting into 12 or 12 years, and then go through that and extend to 24 years. The 1980 is amazing, and that's a little bit older. So maybe you want to buy 4 cases. I don't know.
So, when I visited you guys, I had some fun. The tasting room down that overlooks the barrel room. I was holding, if somebody digs a little deep on my blog, they'll figure it out. I was holding my birthday vintage. And it's definitely not the 7 or the 13. But it's really fun. I love the idea of, having your birthday at your wedding or something like this. I think I decided on my last Instagram live that if I get married, I will have each table will have a different bottle of wine. So not everybody will be drinking the same stuff.
That is a great idea.
Yeah, I just need to have a wedding because I have the best ideas for the wines and obviously the champagne. Anyway.
So if you were going to be married, what chef would you ask to prepare food for your?
I cannot answer that question. That is way too hard. I would probably do the same thing. I'd probably have like 6 or 7 chefs and each do a dish.
Yep.
I haven't actually thought about this, but this is a great question and the answer just came to me. Although I do believe, I sort of think at this point, if I were to get married, I'd want to elope, so I'd want it to be very small. But, you know, each chef could still do like 20
takeout.
Takeout, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I will think about that, and when we harvest together, I will let you know.
Okay.
So we did.
And if you answer the question at the French Laundry, you're gonna have to be careful.
Well, I mean, so funny story. When I was at the French Laundry for my birthday, it was my second time dining there. And I've actually been a couple times because a friend of mine is lovely and works there. And whenever I'm in the neighborhood, he's like, swing by for a glass in the garden. And I'm like, okay, I'd love to. And I think it was my 4th time going for my birthday. And Chef Thomas Keller was there. And we went in the kitchen and I said, thank you so much for coming for my birthday. Because, you know, I hadn't met him in the past. So, and speaking of which, last weekend we celebrated a dear friend's birthday in Napa. And we dined with him at his Mexican restaurant, so I feel like we're on a roll, 2 for 2 now.
Very good.
So we do have a question about aging. So somebody said they have, oh my goodness, they have to share this. They have a 1982 double Magnum.
Wow.
What do you suggest they do? Open and drink it with friends or keep it?
I would, definitely you want to open and drink it with friends. In the 82, I'm trying to think, the last time I had it was within the last year.
Oh wow!
And in a 750, it was showing really well. So I imagine it would show really well now in the double Magnum.
Yeah.
So they can pretty much choose their time. Maybe post-COVID.
That's a great idea. Or honestly, the middle of COVID helped get us through it.
That's true. Or, that's true. And maybe November would be a good time to drink it.
Okay.
Depending on how things go then.
So that just got me thinking about Thanksgiving. And I would assume your wines pair beautifully with the turkey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And mashed potatoes and gravy.
Obviously. Yeah. And cranberry sauce. Oh, gosh. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays. I'm going to have Opus 1 in it this year if I'm lucky. Great. Well, so we've talked about both the 7 and the 13. I'm curious, those of you guys at home, we are getting, somebody asked the same question I asked you. Michael, what is your favorite vintage?
So I'll give the same answer. Okay. I have 1 child, but let's say I had 3 and she wasn't 32. They were all like little, 5, 7, and 9, for example. And I took them to a Japanese restaurant. The one that behaved the best that night would be my favorite child. Same with the wine. When we have wine dinners and we have a couple of vintages of Opus, the one that shows the best that night is my favorite. Mm-hmm. Having said that, my emotional favorite is the 2010. Because the 2010, as you know, to me was like being in a keto match with Mother Nature. And we were trying, we had a wet spring, then a very cool summer. We had a heat spell at the end of August. It was just like anything that she threw at us, we attempted to.
Sort of like 2020.
Yeah. Actually, 2020's.
Maybe the 2020 will be your next favorite if we can survive this year.
Yeah, 10 years after. And we will survive. And we will thrive.
And it's going to be your 20th. This is your 20th vintage, isn't it?
This is my 20th 2021? Vintage. 2020 is my 20th vintage.
So I have a feeling 2020 is just going to be spectacularly fabulous because to your point, we've had a hell of a year. It's your 20th vintage. It's just meant to be. I'll be at Harvest.
So there you have it.
Yeah. I'm really good at punch downs. Do you guys do punch downs?
We don't do punch downs.
Oh, shoot. All right. Well, you're going to have to give me another job.
We have some. I have some in mind for you. So
okay. What do you have in mind?
Well, you could do a pump over, and that's very easy because you go to the top of the tank, and you have a little tablet, and you start the pump, and then you watch the sprinkler, and you make sure you can adjust the speed of the pump
I've
flow,
done that too. I know how to do that.
so that it doesn't touch the wall,
Yep.
touches just inside the wall, perfectly distributed on the cap.
And aren't the grapes really hot and they're sort of like steaming?
Yeah, there's a little bit of foam, yes.
Yeah, so I did a harvest at one of your neighbors down the street a couple years ago, St. Superi, and I watched the winemaker do that pump over.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
I love their set. I like their self-guided tour at St. Superi, where you can do the aromas and you look through the windows and all that.
Oh, I've never done that.
You probably didn't have it because you were with Mick? Was it Mick?
I was with Michael. Yeah.
Michael.
No, I'll have to go back for the self-guided tour. So speaking of which, that leads to one of my other questions. Have you guys reopened yet for visitors, and when do you plan to?
We're targeting the 2nd of September, from what I understand.
Okay.
And it's going to be amazing.
And I assume you're probably booked out.
I have no idea because I've been really focused on what I do. And so I don't know. I have a couple of groups that want to come in September, and so I have a couple of visits to host. But I imagine that they'll start out just in afternoon visits, and maybe Morgan may or may not want to pop in and say what, or she'll just trust what I'm saying is true, that she can trust me. But there'll be some visits, and just to get started. And we have this amazing space that's been created because the original
I saw it under construction. Is it done yet?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
It's done.
But you saw the original partners room?
Well, I was there in Harvest. So I was there in September. And I toured it. It was under construction.
You did see it.
Yeah.
You may have seen, maybe you saw the salon. I'm not sure. But anyway, the original partners room was Filipina Rachaw's bedroom. And that became our tasting room.
Oh, down on the first floor?
Yes, but the salon you may have been in the salon. I'm trying to think of where we were at the time. But the salon was really like a place where the tours would begin.
Okay.
The partners room was where people would go to have a glass of wine or to taste or to get a glass of wine to go up on the terrace.
Yeah, but I feel like I've been to the partners room. I don't. Because
okay.
They're like the sofas, and then you go upstairs. I mean, I've been there twice, so it's hard to keep it all straight. But and then the last time, I mean, we walked through the construction area, which looked really cool, and sort of the sweeping views of the vineyards and stuff.
Exactly, and see Mount St. Helena. It's a beautiful space, and it has such a good feeling. So Morgan texted me, and I'm going to lose you for a second. Well, maybe I lost.
We're going to get cut off in about 5 minutes, so I can't lose you for too long.
Okay, so we're not going to worry about it. I'll send you a note what she said.
Okay.
So, but anyway, I think it's the 2nd of September, the day after the blessing of the grapes.
Oh, great.
And we'll probably start harvesting, I imagine, around Labor Day, just after the following week. Could have something coming in a little earlier, but I'm not sure. So.
And do you think it'll be another 4-week harvest or longer, like a 6-week?
I think it may be, 4 to 5 weeks. I don't think it'll go 6. We always start very early relative to most people picking red grapes because we want to have the first fruit coming in, have lots of fresh fruit, maybe a little herbal character, because we need that acid to hold the center together.
Age. Yeah.
And yes, to age. And also we want to have a steady flow of grapes for the guys, men and women, to pick, and also for the cellar crew to deal with inside. So
I have a question. I'm looking at your tasting notes from the 7 to 13, and it looks like the skin contact's pretty consistent. We've got 18 days, 20 days. Barrel aging. In the 7, you did 19 months, and in the 13, you did 17 and a half. So when do you decide to just sort of stop aging it and shorten it?
So we work with 10 Coopers or so, and they come, like right now, next springtime we'll be tasting the 18 to decide when it comes out of barrel. Okay. And so the Coopers will come, and they come one at a time, and we'll have maybe 12 or 13 glasses, 14 glasses, and it's the 2018 that's been aging in Barone barrels, Taranso, Bel Air, etc. And the last glass is a a proportional blend of all the coopers. And so what that does, it allows us to show the cooper how well the wine, their barrel has supported the wine. But it's like taking a photograph. And so when you take these photographs and you put them together, it's like going to Disneyland. And you have that little booklet that you flip through, and they're each individual drawings, and you have Mickey Mouse like this. I'm sorry, you can't really see me. This, and then, you know?
Yeah, and it's like that flash book.
And so we're making a film here. We're not making photographs because we're not photographers, we're filmmakers, because it's watching how that booklet unfolds and trying to figure out, project, when are we going to have a perfect balance between fruit and oak. And that's when we start to take the wine out of barrel. And it ends up being somewhere between 16 and 20 months.
Okay.
So that's why the difference. It's based on taste.
Yeah, well, that's great. That must be a fun panel to be on.
It is.
Yeah. Great. Well, I just want to, oh my goodness, I just want to give, we probably have like a minute. Instagram is going to kick us off. Well, I haven't got the minute warning, so maybe we have 2 minutes. But is there anything you would like to cover that we haven't talked about yet?
Oh boy, I think that I think you had a great question. You asked me, does it bother me to spit wine out?
Yes.
And you know, we spit before 12, and then we start swallowing with lunch, because we're doing mostly evaluations in the morning. But I do hate spitting wine, because I think that winemakers and viticulturists, no matter if it's us or our neighbors or our friends throughout the world, they put a lot of effort into making their wine. And so I think we need to give it a couple of good looks. And swallowing it allows you to see the length of the finish and how well it gives you time to think about it. And so I think it's important always to respect what everyone's done, because it does require a lot of time. I went to cocktail camp a few years ago, and in San Francisco with
Where's
Rohini.
that?
In San Francisco, Rohini. It's called Cocktail Camp.
Oh.
Rohini, I don't remember Rohini's last name, but she's fantastic. And you have to introduce yourself, your name, what you do, and why you're there. And I said, my name is Michael, and I make wine, and I'm here for instant gratification. Why? Because with what I do, it takes 18 months.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a long time before you see, and you can't just like throw it out and start again. But with cocktails, if you don't like it, you toss it and you make another one.
Yeah.
So that's the instant gratification part of it.
That's a very good analogy. And it's interesting because when I talk to winemakers, I mean, you get one chance a year to sort of get it right?
Yeah. Yes. But you have to think of it like you have all these steps, because each time it's always about balance. When you prune, you balance. When you thin, you balance. Everything is keeping things in balance and check. And so if the sum of all those little moments equals something wonderful, then you've succeeded.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you succeed every year because you're the winemaker at Opus One, and you guys are just amazing, and the most highly sought after wine in Napa Valley that I know of. So pretty incredible.
It's the team. It's not me. It's the place mostly. I mean, if you don't have the place, you have nothing. And then to have the type of people we have on our team, in the vineyard, in the cellar, there are so many winemakers here because everyone contributes.
So
and
it's
Morgan,
funny.
I have to tell you this one thing about Morgan. So she left to take a job somewhere in 2018, I believe, went to Benchmark. And so I dedicated the 18 harvest. I think it was the 18 harvest. I'm sure it was. Dedicated the 18 harvest to her. And so we're just bottling it. We finished yesterday bottling the 2018 Opus One. So she'll get a couple bottles in 2021 on October 1st.
That's amazing.
Commemorate the vintage that was dedicated to her.
Oh, well, speaking of which, we do officially have the 30-second warning. So before we get cut off, I want to thank you. I want to dedicate this amazing Instagram Live to you, my new, best friend, buddy, winemaker extraordinaire. And hopefully, I would love to come up and join you. Hopefully, you were serious. 5 a.m. or
Yeah.
4:45, whatever you said.
Yeah.
I'm totally in, and let's coordinate.
Let's do that.
Thank you
Look
for
forward to it.
these beautiful wines, your
Thank
insight,
you.
your passion, and all of your funny stories.